I came to Prescott in 1969 to work at Prescott College. And I worked there until 1974 when they went bankrupt. And then I sort of slid over to Yavapai College. I had learned about it in the interim. And I was interested in computers. And so I got a job at Yavapai as a faculty support person for the computer department. And I worked at that for a while, and then I moved into the business division, which taught computing. So instead of supporting the faculty, I actually was teaching students. And I did that for a while. And then toward the end of my career here, the physics instructor decided to retire in the middle of a school year, and they needed somebody to teach physics, and that's what my degree is in. So they grabbed me to move to the math science division and teach physics and astronomy. So I finished my career and I retired in 2000. So that's my brief history here.
Wow, interesting. What was it like working with the students?
What was it like working with students?
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed it a great deal, and I enjoyed both of the jobs I had. The faculty support was enjoyable, and also the working with the students. I taught mostly computer things at the beginning and then physics things at the end, and students are fun. Helping people learn is a great thing.
What was the student demographics then? I suppose it's been changing throughout the years.
I don't think it has changed a lot, especially when I was teaching computers. There was a wide range of students. There were a lot of young students who were just, college age, as they say. And then there were a bunch of older students who were coming back and learning about computers. And so I had really quite a wide range of students in that situation. When I moved to the math science division, then the range was not so wide. It was mostly college-age students. Occasionally there'd be somebody coming back and taking physics or astronomy, but mostly college-age students.
Amazing. Did you have many athletes, for instance? Because the school seems to have acquired a lot of athletics.
Right. I had, when I was teaching computers, there were all, as I say, all sorts of students, some of whom were athletes. When I was teaching physics, there were fewer athletes there, although I did teach some physical science courses that some students took to satisfy requirements. And so I had some athletes doing that. But most of the other physics students were more interested in science than in athletics, and so they were the sort of more heavy-duty students.
Tell us more about the college. What was it like? Was it, because we know that there's been a lot of changes, they've added many structures, they've added many departments. What was it like then as compared to now?
In many ways, I think it was the same. When I first came, I was a computer support person, and the computers were very different then. We had big computers, although we did have time sharing, so students sat at individual terminals. But I can remember some stories of the early people. Walt Ryer and Ernie Broughton were early computer people at the college, and they told me all these stories about how they started their computer careers by learning to program computers down at ASU. And they had to punch a bunch of cards and drive 2 hours down to ASU and put the cards into a card reader and then see if their program worked. And they wouldn't get their results until a week later when they would drive back down again, and then they see if the program worked, which it usually didn't, and then they had to repunch some cards and try it again. So they had a week-long turnaround time in trying to make a computer program. And when I arrived at the college, things were much better than that. We had a time-sharing computer with terminals, and we could type at a teletype machine and get the information in and get feedback right away. So I had just missed the really primitive aspect of computers.
How big was the campus then? I understand that it started with only one structure and then eventually...
When I came, the 4 main buildings, the ones called 1, 2, 3, and 4, were in place. And so I wasn't aware much of the growth of the campus while I was here. I worked mostly in Building 1, and then when I changed to teaching science, I worked in Building 4, and those were all existing buildings. The Building 4 had a little add-on that I used to teach in, but I would say I didn't notice a lot of development of the campus. It's quite different now. The new library and the new way the walkway up to the between buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4 has changed, is really quite different, but that was after I retired.
What about the environment? Do you think it's changed?
Not sure what you mean by the environment. The town, of course, has changed because it's grown so.
Well, there's been an increase in different types of students now. You have students from all ranges. We have more international students. We have more students from out of state.
Right. I didn't notice much of that. I retired in 2000, so that was quite a while ago. And from when I started to when I finished, I wouldn't say there was a big change in the demographics or the type of students or the size. Of course, we were growing, but not. I wouldn't say there was a big effect there.
So in short, you can say that your experience was quite all right?
Oh, it was a good experience. I enjoyed working here a lot. The teachers had a good deal of freedom to do what they felt was best for their students, and we didn't always get along well with the administration. That's normal for a college, but I would say that the situation was a good one. It was a good place to work.
Would you say that from the time you came to probably the time you retired, the costing of the classes may have changed? Because I assume in computers, since they've moved leaps and bounds, and must have been quite a change. Would you know anything about the costs of
I don't know much about the costs. I do know that I sometimes have played bass in the college orchestra, and now I think it's about $50 for a 1-credit course, and that seems a lot compared to what I remember in the past. But I didn't take many classes in the past, and when I was faculty, I wasn't charged for the classes, even though the same orchestra class was one I had been in. The poor orchestra instructor really has a tough time because most orchestras, they'll pay you if you'll play in it, but you have to pay to play in this one, so that makes life kind of tough. But I think the cost of classes has continued to rise. The one cost that's really amazed me is the cost of textbooks. Are just really high, and I'm surprised our education system hasn't adjusted somehow to that.
That would be a good thing.
you could stand lower cost books.
Right, I assume. How about the transitions in administration? Were you here during any transitions in administration, say, for the president of the school?
Right, yes, I was here through several presidents. And in general, the the faculty is always unhappy with the president. That's normal. And then when that president leaves and the next one comes, they say, "Oh gosh, we were actually better off before." So that's kind of the normal transition. Joe Russo was the president while I was here, and a lot of people like to complain about him, and we're sorry to see him go when they got the next president. Paul Walker was president when we built the Performance Hall, and he was probably less popular than most of the other presidents. I don't think people got along well with him. And then Doreen Daley was president for a while I was here, and I just didn't have much contact with the presidents. So.
Did it affect the administration at all, like more rules or?
Actually, just before I got here, they had rather stricter. My wife was actually worked here before I got here as a librarian, Nancy Wright, and she was reminding me that before I came, they had a dress code and a bunch of rules about. Faculty were not allowed to go to Whiskey Row and appear in public in bars and so on. So they had kind of a more strict bunch of rules. But I missed all that. When I came, that president had gone and the rules were more relaxed.
That's actually really interesting. We haven't had anyone mention
No, you haven't?
We haven't.
Got to get some older faculty here who lived through those days.
Wow. Did the rules only apply to the instructors, or do you know? Or
I'm not sure. You should ask the people who were here then to find out about what the rules really were and how they applied.
Do they have residential halls when you were here? Did you teach some of the students who might have been?
I think we did have residential halls, and but I was just kind of independent of that, and I didn't know whether my students lived in the dorms or not.
Right. Interesting. What about campus police when it was added? Because I heard they did not have the facilities before that. Do you think it affected?
Well, I seem to remember that there were always some security people around. But my experience with them was nothing but good. They were there to help open a door when I needed it, and they were kind of low profile, and everything seemed to work well that way. I remember just before I retired, there was a fuss about whether the campus police should be armed or not, should carry guns, and there was a lot of fuss about that, but my own experience was that they were kind of in the background and did a good job.
Great. What about the community around in this area? Were they very supportive, or what are the common memories about that?
Well, the community has grown a lot. The place where it shows the most is in traffic. At rush hour, sometimes it's hard to move around in the town. And just recent, this has nothing to do with the history of the college, but just recently it seems they've been fixing all the streets that I want to drive on. And so that slowed things down a lot.
And it does affect the students who live off campus too. I mean,
right, their ability to commute here.
Right.
That's right. But in terms of in the early days when I first came here, the town had a sort of a small town atmosphere that it's lost some now because it's so much bigger. But it's not a big effect. There's been a lot of that we had no shopping malls or anything like that in the old days. But basically I would say it's, except for the traffic, it's still a very nice place to live, and the character hasn't done a major change.
Do you think that may have helped shape the school in a way? If there were no shopping malls, they may have had to come here to school instead.
No, I don't think so. I think the educational aspects are pretty much the same as they were before. The same sort of things are available. Although there are some new facilities, especially when we first started, we were really a 2-year college, and we still are, but there have been a lot of cooperative programs with NAU, and there's Old Dominion University was here for a while, and so there was some effort later on to provide 4 years worth of college for people. The other big thing I've noticed is the other campuses, the Verdi campus in particular. And while I was teaching computers, we tried to do some television courses where students could take them in both the Verdi and in Prescott and see what was happening in the class over a television, two-way television. So that was kind of an expansion that the college went through that was not there originally.
Amazing. Do they have college events, like generally for everyone? Because they seem to have more career fairs now. Was that existent?
I don't remember well the early days. I know that the Performance Hall in particular, it now attracts a lot of programs that are kind of independent of the college. Right. And as a community service. And we didn't have those before the Performance Hall. The college classes, like the college choir and the orchestra that I played in, and there's a couple of jazz groups, would, as part of their class, put on performances that the public could come to. And so that has happened for a while. But when the Performance Hall was built, then we attracted these big name performers that didn't have anything to do with the college especially. Right. So that changed.
Did you attend some of the events?
We do attend some of them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We take advantage of it.
Okay, well, is there anything that you would like to share, something that you remember that was part of the college then that's no longer existent? And all things may come to mind.
No, I can't think of anything in particular. I remember at the beginning of each year we'd always have some kind of seminar or faculty activity for a few days before the school would start, and I assume they're still doing that. They were doing that up until the time I retired. But I can't think of anything special about the early days that I haven't already told you.
What about the programs? Are there programs that you would have wished to see that probably are still not part of the school, or a few adjustments that you think could have been made just to sort of improve? Not particularly. When I was supporting computers, I was quite busy, and the college provided good computer facilities, so I would say that part went well. When I was teaching physics, the surprising thing about let me go next to teaching computers. Again, I thought the college really provided good facilities, and the programs we had, the faculty decided what would be good to teach and was able to teach it. So I think that went well. When I went to teaching physics, the thing that surprised me was how much beginning elementary physics was the same as it was when I took it in college. I'll tell you an interesting story about that. I was called kind of at the last minute to do this, and when I got the textbook, I was, as I say, surprised that all I had to do was remember that stuff that I had learned when I was a college student. I didn't have to learn much new things. But the one new thing that happened was we were analyzing some electric circuits in a class, and there's a complicated procedure called Kirchhoff's rules that you use to analyze a circuit. And
when you finish doing this analysis, you've got a bunch of simultaneous equations that you have to solve. And so I said to the students, now what method would you like to use to solve these? We can use substitution, we can use elimination, what would you like to do? And one of the students says, I've already got the answer, I just did it in my graphing calculator. So we didn't have, when I was taking physics, we didn't have graphic calculators. But that's the one change that I observed when I got here to teach physics.
That's actually a good one. Generally, are there any grievances, small complaints that people may have had then?
Oh, there were lots of complaints. The faculty love to complain about things.
But these complaints that help change and adjust places. So
that's right. That's right. And faculty input is worthwhile and is good. So but when I look back at the whole picture, it's hard to find stuff that you'd say was really awful.
That's well, maybe not awful, maybe things that could have helped just the environment a little bit, maybe among staff or among students, because you were working with the students.
Yeah, I can't think of anything major that really needed to be adjusted. Okay. I thought life was pretty good.
So how do you feel about the changes? Because the teaching is changing a little bit. We have more online students. We have traditional students, but the classroom has expanded and has changed.
Right. Well, it's hard to say. Let me tell you a little bit about my educational history that bears on this, and that is, I was a science student and took a lot of math and science courses, and there was a way of teaching them, which was the teacher got up and lectured, and then you went home and did homework, and then you came and you took tests. And that really worked for me. That was a system that I fit. And it's the conventional way, but science was kind of the conventional thing, and that worked well for me. Then when I came here, I was interested in education. I worked for 3 years at MIT on a place called the Science Teaching Center, they changed their name to the Education Research Center, but in any case it was a part of MIT that was doing research on teaching science. And then I came to Prescott College, which has a very different philosophy about teaching, very much involved with people doing things and rather than listening to a teacher talk. And I think that for many students and for many subjects, that's a very good way to do it. So I'm a big enthusiast of the Prescott College way of teaching also. And then when we did computer courses, it's obviously you just need to do lots of stuff at the computer terminal to learn that. And when I went back to science, I went back more to the lecturing method because that's kind of fits science. At the level of science they're doing. Later science, you need to do more discovery and research and stuff like that. And then while I was teaching computers, I did this distant learning thing with the two-way video with the Verdi campus. So I've experimented with a lot of different ways. And my overall conclusion is that they each have their strengths and weaknesses and apply to different students and to different subjects. And so you can't be locked into one particular way of doing things. But I have discovered that it's an unusual student who can learn pretty much on their own. The human contact with a mentor or a teacher of some sort really helps a lot with most students. I myself, have often learned things just by reading books and working on stuff myself. But I think many students, it's hard to do that without a schedule and a person sort of watching over you and helping where needed.
So what do you think could be a little frustrating especially the camera, like working with the students on the Verdi campus, do you think it might even affect how they look at the class or perception?
Well, that there was a fair amount of personal contact there. You got to see, the student got to see me on the video, and I got to see them, and we get to have a two-way conversation. And a couple of times during the semester, I would go over to the Verdi campus and do the class from there. And the Prescott students would then see me on the video. So I think that method, it's not a cheap setup. It takes a lot of technology to do that. But I think that was a way that should work pretty well.
Right. Now that you're retired and you probably have changed your lifestyle.
Right, I have.
Are there things that you wish the college had that it doesn't, or facilities that you think that could be useful to the students of the college? What are you planning on taking some classes? Do you ever take some classes? I
haven't taken any classes because I'm too busy doing other stuff already. So I'm an amateur astronomer, and as I say, I play the bass, so I practice the bass and play in some groups. And I enjoy the outdoors and hiking. So I've got plenty of hobbies to keep me busy. So I've just really not had time to do a course. So I haven't used the college much since I retired.
Any suggestions for those who are retired who may wish to come and apply maybe their skills later that the college could do to facilitate them?
No, as I understand, there's a thing that at least used to be called the Learning Institute that was kind of a collection of retired people who gave seminars and courses that people could take if they were interested. So I think there's ample opportunity. I don't think that's a problem.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.